What's up, welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here, another podcast. What's going on in pop culture right now? We got a big one this week, a ton of exciting music to talk about. New albums from Niki and Polo G and Logic and Ravyn Lenae. We have the disastrous new Borderlands movie and the miraculous new season 3 of HBO's Industry to discuss as well. So make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod, see the links below. Get the best of 2024 Spotify playlist linked below. Let's get into it. What's up, welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Ravyn Lenae's second album, Bird's Eye. Ravyn Lenae, the Chicago R&B singer, 25 years old now, based in LA. Ravyn's been someone I've been monitoring for a little bit at this point, primarily because of her Chicago roots and kind of how she came to be, like in the mainstream music sense, you know, working with Smino, working with no-name people we've been paying attention to, and then getting that attention of Steve Lacy and making her Crush EP with him. Speaking of co-sign, she also opened up for Georgia Smith and SZA on tour, and 2 years ago we got that debut album Hypnos, which had a lot of love, and now we're back with album 2. Ravyn working with DJ Dahi on this one. He's the executive producer. So she's really racked up quite the list of collaborators and co-signers already. And really, I think it's well-deserved because Ravyn is really setting out intentionally, openly speaking about the desire to be an R&B artist, of course, but branch out beyond R&B, beyond the traditional boxes and beyond the traditional boxes R&B artists often are placed in. And as a result, you listen to her music and you hear some more alternative pop influence. You hear like reggae from time to time. There's a lot more genre flair and experimentation going on in her music. So she, to me, really stands out amongst a lot of her peers because, and of course that's a great thing because we know R&B is a really saturated space, especially female R&B. But I think Ravyn just has a lot of variety to her music, which is really welcome to me as someone who can find samey R&B a bit boring, honestly. Ravyn just gets quite creative with the melody, which I think really stands out and makes a lot of these songs interesting because she has, I think, a voice that certainly stands out and she knows how to, I think, work it in fun ways. The first song, Genius, I love the drums on that, really strong presence, and then it has this big chorus where you have this groovy, like nasally singing from Ravyn. Really noticeable, like standout song. Quite enjoyed it. Bad Idea, the second song, almost has like a twinkling beat. The snare is very noticeable once again on this song. Track 3, you have one of the singles, One Wish, featuring Childish Gambino. And this one's kind of okay. Like I feel like the Childish Gambino feature is fine. Like it doesn't really like rise up the way his features often do, given he doesn't do a ton of features. But song's okay. Again, cool cosign, but nothing special to me. Dream Girl, though, with featuring Ty Dolla $ign, I like a lot. I think Ty is just a huge presence on this song with his crooning. Listening to him harmonize with himself, like they have great chemistry together. He's a great match, and of course we've been getting a lot of Ty Dolla $ign this year with his 2 Vultures albums with Kanye, of course. But I think it's one of his better performances of the year, honestly. I also enjoyed Love Me Not. Very big drums, again, quite upbeat, and then One of One also stood out because it has a really like out of nowhere noticeable guitar solo towards the back half of the song, which I enjoyed quite a bit too. Ultimately, it's a short album, 35 minutes. It's in and out quick, but I think Ravyn, between Hypnos, that Crush EP, and now Bird's Eye, certainly established herself as an interesting R&B figure, someone who probably deserves more attention and more listens than she currently gets. I think she's one of the more interesting artists in that space, and yet she's not super mainstream. She's not a massive star by any means, despite being signed to Atlantic Records. So it would be nice for this to be another big stepping stone for her, and I think there's certainly potential for some of these songs to stick around, but I think it's going to be more of a slow burn in terms of when people discover this music. But I think those who like R&B will enjoy it when they find it. But let me know, what did you think of Ravyn Lenae's second album, Bird's Eye? What was your favorite song? And for more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Polo G's 4th album, Hood Poet. Polo G, the rising rap star out of Chicago, one of the most successful new rappers of the last 5 or so years, you could say. I've been a big fan of Polo G's rise to this point, particularly that second album, The GOAT from 2020, where I think Polo really established himself as one of the signature new voices in the Chicago scene, particularly the most significant Chicago drill rapper of the moment, giving us tons of great songs on that album, like Flex featuring the late Juice World, 21, Heartless, the awesome Wishing for a Hero, which very capably, samples and interpolates Tupac's Changes. I was really over the moon for that album. And a funny thing kind of happened out of that, where Polo, who to this point had been a really hard artist, the biggest hit off that album ended up being not one of those lead singles. It ended up being Martin and Gina off that album. That song is over 900 million streams on Spotify now. And taking that along with the biggest hit of Polo G's career off his last album back in 2021, Rap Star, you take those two songs and you kind of realize what's happened with Polo G. Polo G has stopped being a drill rapper and is more of a melodic, like sing-songy rapper. And it's just not exactly a lane I thought he was going to go down, because I thought that versatility of being able to do both was a strength of his. The problem with Polo G's Hood Poet is when Polo G leans into the melodic sound and leaves behind the drill roots, he becomes less interesting as an artist because he doesn't stand out nearly as much doing the melodic stuff. I think it's a bit of a shame because Hood Poet has some of the best storytelling, the best introspection of Polo G's career, I would say, but the songs are just a lot less fun to listen to. The beats are certainly less inspired. I don't see how it can be anything but disappointing if you've been a big Polo fan and you've really enjoyed this ride. Like, he gave us many bangers just a few years ago, and I think Hood Poet's lacking in that department. It really pains me to say it. A lot of talk has been like Polo G fall off. Again, I think lyrically he's at his best, but like sonically and like vision wise is just not interesting right now. On one hand, like you listen to Polo G talk about his career and whatnot, he's wanted to slow down a little bit. He's wanted to, back out of the public eye, step back from fame at least a little bit. We've noticed the dreads got a little longer, definitely looking like Chief Keef these days. Looks good, but it clearly seems like he's tried to change his trajectory. And going into this melodic route, I mean, it's just a clear shift. I don't know how else to say it. And he's just a different artist now than he used to be. And not to be hyperbolic, like there are highlights here. There's the occasional hard moment from Polo, but I think if we look to really one of the best songs off Hood Poet, and that would be the song Distraction, I think it's probably my favorite song on the album. That song starts incredibly hard in terms of Polo G rapping. Also, one of my favorite lines from him. They claim we locked in, what if we wasn't rapping? Very self-aware. Talking about fame, talking about sobriety, some of his best lyrics, some of his best storytelling on this song. And yet this song itself, he like is so desperate, so quick to stop rapping hard on it. And it's like, oh man, like that's what people loved, And maybe I'm just speaking for myself and people like me, because again, his biggest hits are actually the melodic stuff. So I get it, but I just can't help but be disappointed. The song Dark Side stood out to me as well. I really enjoyed the piano. Very noticeable on that beat. Actually made this beat interesting and stand out across most of the album just because it was a bit different. Bad Kids featuring Glorilla, probably my second favorite song on the album because, God, those piano keys are dancing again on that song. And then, man, Glow is awesome on this song. Great feature. She's going harder than Polo G, and obviously we know Glorilla can go hard. She's having a great year, but that's one where they almost go bar for bar, at least a little bit. I would have liked it even more, honestly, but that's certainly a highlight. Then Survival of the Fittest featuring Future, solid song, and clearly like Polo's trying to lean into the future side of things in terms of the music he's making right now. So again, I understand. Father's Day, the second to last song, you can probably guess what this one's about. Incredibly introspective about Polo G's past and his dad leaving and whatnot, and how that makes him feel. And you have like a children's choir like sampled like throughout and in the background of the song. Quite powerful, great writing. The song Rain Fallen featuring the Kid Leroy. Honestly, I thought the Kid Leroy had like a tougher flow than Polo on the song. Like when did in my wildest dreams did I ever expect to say that? Only Gang with 42 Duck, that's okay. I thought that song definitely had more potential. Things fine. We a Shoot with Dirk, like it's fine. Obviously, we like the Chicago connection, but the song's okay. And yeah, just a lot of the songs without features, like really passed me by, honestly. So I'm hoping Polo G can kind of find a better happy medium in terms of this lean. He's never going to abandon this melodic sound. It's way too successful for him, I guess. I'm also curious how this album performs. He didn't have like a hit single leading up into this. The album Hall of Fame, it was okay. Apart from Rap Star, though, nothing really stuck around. So we're a few years removed from some of the more popular, like, volume of hits he's had. So I'm just curious, like, what's next for Polo G? He's still quite young, obviously. I'll be interested to listen for sure. But let me know, what did you think of Polo G's fourth album, Hood Poet? Are you disappointed in his new direction like me? What'd you think? And for more rap reviews, more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, welcome back, Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Logic's ninth album, Ultra 85. Logic is back with his ninth album, his 12th release over the last 10 years. And if we look back to the Young Sinatra mixtapes, it's basically been 15 consecutive years of at least one Logic project coming out every year. The dude has been prolific, despite the fact that at one point he was retiring 4 years ago, but now this is actually the fourth album since he, came out of retirement. Logic's Ultra 85, I think, is coming at I don't know, it was an interesting time, but certainly a different time for Logic in the sense that he's long since passed his commercial peak of, 7 years ago when 1-800 went mainstream and he won some Grammys. And I think he's also quite past his, like, cultural and, like, rap nerd peak as well, just because I think Logic's brand, Logic's style has become just less interesting or more routine over the years, and people have been less excited about his music. Of these four albums post the 2020 retirement album, No Pressure, I think Ultra 85 is the strongest of these releases, and I can get into that, get into why that is. I think in a sense, if I could boil it down, I just haven't really understood like what is the Logic story to tell these days, right? I mean, part of this is probably based on the fact that he's given us so much music. He's had high highs as a rapper, and he's also had very low lows, right? He's become a meme. There's been lots of talk and stuff said about Logic, both good and bad. And he gets into that and how he feels about that on the album, which I appreciate. This is now the second album he's released since finishing his Def Jam record deal following 2022's Vinyl Days. So he's really just independent, doing his own stuff on 301 Productions. He moved his wife and family to Oregon. He's kind of off the grid at this point. So again, like, there's not much of a Logic narrative to ascribe to these days because he's kind of like taking himself off the board in terms of participating in the rap game. All that's to say, I think Ultra 85 is Logic's best album, certainly since No Pressure, but frankly, I think we can go even further back, and it might be my favorite album since The Incredible True Story, to be honest. This is Logic at his most capable, technically, some of his best rapping, but thankfully he's not doing the let me rap as fast as possible stuff like on Confessions. Logic is really kind of honed in on what makes his music great. For the most part, he's not singing because that's not his strength, and instead he's rapping over dusty ass boom bap, and that is when he's at his absolute best. But he sounds really inspired, sounds very energetic on this album, and I haven't been able to say that to this degree over the last handful of albums. He also is quite introspective about his current situation, how his life has changed, and also what people have said about him and some of the criticism lobbied at him. I really think it's some of his most interesting music in quite some time, and he, again, is someone I've had largely kind of written off in terms of ever being interesting again. It is fun that he brings back the skit storytelling structure of Kai and Thomas from The Incredible True Story, the sci-fi. I do enjoy listening to Steve Blum voice acting, after all. Songs like Mission Control, though, I mean, that to me is one of the best Logic songs in a long time. My favorite song on the album might be track 2, Mission Control. It starts off with the piano keys from Gucci Mane's Lemonade, aka the piano keys on Odd Future's Orange Juice. And then he takes it a step further and he like chops it down and he slows it down, and then like he has this kid sample at the end. It's like, these are Young Sinatra vibes, like through and through, and he sounds great on the song. Awesome. And then you follow that up with Deja Vu, with DJ Drama feature aside. Deja Vu is the Everyday beat, one of Logic's biggest hits. Of course, a song that's quite old at this point. When I heard that, I was like, oh, wow, you're like flipping one of your old songs, but it's like in a cool way. It's fun. There's a lot of skits on the album, and overall the album's way too long. Like that kind of goes without saying with a lot of Logic works, but the song Fear is interesting because it starts off as almost like a break beat, very fast tempo, just certainly a different vibe from Logic in terms of beats he usually rides on. The singing on that song is not it, but I think the early production was pretty cool. Gardens 3, awesome bass line. Interstellar, as the name might suggest, some more inward looking Logic. See, he's a bit laid back on a song like that. It's usually not my mode from him. I want him to go harder. I want the more high energy stuff. So it's not my cup of tea from him, but solid lyrically, I'd say. And the orchestral outro is pretty cool. 44 Ever, very hard flow, but also an awesome beat. Like this is one of the Logic technical masterclass type songs that he does from time to time, but I think it actually goes really hard. I think at one point he's doing like Jid's 151 rum flow. It sounds really cool. Teleport I thought was just okay, very jazzy though. The saxophone certainly stood out. Antidote, that song goes hard. Nothing else to say about it. It's really cool. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, as the name might suggest, is a Quentin Tarantino reference. We know Bobby Tarantino is a fan of QT, but it's not just a QT reference. It's almost as like a general throwback nostalgia song where he also makes a lot of reference to his coming to understand and appreciate rap growing up, and he references all the classics of the 90s in terms of Wu-Tang Clan and whatnot, in terms of albums he's loved. And is it new ground from him? No, it's not. He's professed his Tarantino interest before. He's also professed his Wu-Tang interest before. Look no further than the Wu-Tang Forever song he did with the entire clan, after all. That being said, I did enjoy it. And then I certainly did not expect to get the song Peace, Love, and Positivity, which is Logic, I think, quite eloquently, it's Logic, I think, quite eloquently and quite nuancedly rapping about his identity. Obviously, Logic being biracial has become a meme over the years. Poppy biracial. Logic's even leaned into it and laughed about it himself. But talking about this, talking about how he can pass as white, even though that wasn't his circumstance growing up, and talking about the use of the N-word and how people referred to him and how he referred to other people in his life, I think it's pretty interesting from him to hear it like that, and he's talked about these themes before, I think, to up and down success, to say the least. But I think that song is honestly one of his stronger efforts to talk about something that's pretty specific to him in terms of, most successful mainstream rappers that look like him actually are white, so there's not a lot of people that have gone down that road in the public eye like he has, rap wise. So I think it was a pretty solid, go around. So I just didn't expect to hear that from him. And again, I kind of written off Logic being a great storyteller again. So I think what's cool about Ultra 85 is just that it actually kind of delivered on the hype. This is an album he had hyped up to his fans for years and years, since the Obama administration, and it had been shelved, and it came back, but there wasn't, I think, a lot of belief that it was ever going to be an album of his until some of those early singles came out, earlier this year. So honestly, all things considered, Logic's 9th album, a lot better than I ever expected it to be. But let me know, what did you think of Logic's Ultra 85? Did it meet the hype for you? Let me know. And for more rap reviews, more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Welcome Back to Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Niki's 3rd album, Buzz. Niki, Indonesian singer who has really made quite the name for herself, and at this point is probably the signature artist signed to 88 Rising. I've been a huge fan of Niki's for quite some time. I think she's a really impressive artist, and she continues to really, I think, make strides and just continue to outdo herself and make the best music of her career every time she puts out new music. Niki, to this point, has made quite the sonic evolution from her EPs to her debut album to her 2nd album 2 years ago, Nicole. Originally more of an R&B, more darker, a little bit of electronic dabbling type artist. Now I think she's really kind of leaned into more of a bedroom pop angle that started with Nicole, and is, I think, again, branched out a bit more on Buzz here, where now she's bringing in a bit of folk pop and maybe even a bit of indie rock, you could say. Even though she had a big hit low key several years ago, I think Really, that last album, Nicole firmly established Nicki as a big artist and an album artist too, with 4 songs off Nicole having 100 million plus streams on Spotify, including one of my top 10 songs of 2022, High School in Jakarta, a song I think is absolutely fantastic. Her song Every Summertime from 2021 also made my top 10. Again, I've been a fan. So obviously I was eagerly anticipating this album, Buzz, and I'm actually really looking forward to seeing her live on the Buzz tour next month. So very excited to see her for the first time. Nicki's third album, Buzz, really continues her rapid ascent as a very impressive artist. This upward trajectory that she's been on continues completely unabated with this album. I think there's a lot of great songs on here, great Nicki songs in terms of her brand of music, which is excellent personal songwriting. That's the reason Nicki's been so successful and really developed a loyal fan base and has become the signature artist on 88 Rising. It's because of the intimacy and honesty of her music. Even though Nicki has been on quite a genre journey in terms of the sonic evolution of her music, what's remained consistent has been her pen. Buzz, to me, has one of the best songs Nicki's ever put out, which would be Focus. A great example of Nicki's ability to use different vocal affectation, going a cappella at times to great effect. But more than anything, my favorite lyric on the entire album, Are You the Exception, or do I just like your music taste? Fucking bars, man. What more can you say? I think the most fun songs on Buzz happen to be in the beginning of the track list. You know, Nicki, again, personal songwriter. A lot of this is about romance and flings and also heartbreak and post-heartbreak, things of that nature. Things she's sung about before. And I think because there's a bit of a genre, I don't say blend, but like variety on this album. There's some upbeat songs. There's definitely some lower beat songs too. I unsurprisingly lean more towards the, more higher energy stuff. So I think the first song, Buzz, really stands out. That acoustic strumming, then having the drum pick up as Nicki's singing tempo increases, really awesome. Nicki co-produces or produces all of her own music in addition to writings. I mean, she's a really talented person. And it's really impressive. I think it really stands out because this is probably the most layered her music has ever been in terms of production choices and production switch ups and changes across the length of a song. What I really like about the song Buzz is when you have the instrumental drop out and then Nicki's vocal is just a cappella for a brief moment, the first line of a fucking bestseller. Like, it's almost designed to be this really awesome sing along moment in a live setting, and she's had songs like that before. Like, you think back to parts of High School in Jakarta, for example. Like, I just know that song's gonna pop off live. And she also does it again with Focus. It's really cool when she almost uses her voice in parts as like the only instrument on like otherwise louder songs. It's quite effective. One of the singles, Too Much of a Good Thing. I like this one quite a bit as well. It's quite groovy. Colossal Loss I also enjoyed. A bit more rock leaning with this one. You have the snare and the kick drum, but the guitar line really stands out, really great. Then we get to a slower section in the album. Did You Like Her in the Morning, Take Care, Magnets, and Tsunami. Those 4 songs, they're softer. They're quieter. It's really, you gotta lock in on the lyrics. You gotta lock in on Nicki singing because the instruments are intentionally, light on those songs. I think Magnets is probably my favorite of that bunch just because it has a bit more rhythm, but overall, that those songs are a bit more too somber for me. I think the album then picks back up with one of the other singles, Blue Moon. I think really fun writing about a really brief, romantic dalliance. The drums really stand out in that song. Strong Girl and Paths, again, a bit quiet for me production-wise, but I think the writing really stands out in Paths. Second to last song, Heirloom Pain. I think this one's quite good. Love the drums. Has a really big chorus. And then this album has a great closer in Nothing Can, where the guitar sounds great and it's kind of like high energy for a closer. You don't often get that. Yeah, I mean, I think Nicki's giving you a lot here, just like she gave us on Nicole, and I think she's really become a quite sophisticated artist now, right? She's more than just a songwriter, and I think she's really kind of leaned into this genre lane for herself. Thinking about 88 Rising, obviously been listening to 88 Rising artists since 2017, 2016, whenever I first started listening to like Rich Brian and Higher Brothers and others on the label. Think back to the Head in the Clouds albums. I thought we'd get a lot more of those, right? And yet Nicki, who has really branched out and now is the most listened to artist on the label. And again, I think it's completely justified and really well earned. And I'm really excited to see her live soon. I'm seeing the second show for this upcoming tour, so I'm curious like what that's like. I can't remember the last time I saw a tour like super early in the run of it, so I'm curious like what gets ironed out if anything. But I think it's gonna be really fun because I've watched past videos of her past performances, and she has like really energetic, fun crowds, and that's exciting. That's the point of seeing live music after all. But yeah, let me know, what did you think of Niki's third album, Buzz? Do you think it's her best work? Like me, what was your favorite song? Mine was Focus. And for more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, welcome back, Nostalgia Dave here with a review of the new video game adaptation film Borderlands, directed by Eli Roth, starring Cate Blanchett and Kevin Hart, Ariana Greenblatt, and Jamie Lee Curtis and the voice of Jack Black. Borderlands as a film adaptation of a popular video game franchise has been a long time coming. I mean, at this point, Borderlands is the second most successful 2K video game franchise that doesn't involve sports after Grand Theft Auto. At least that's how I think about it off the top of my head. Blockbuster franchise, right? Has many entries, a lot of fans for sure. Signature work of Gearbox, people know. I never exactly have been clamoring for a Borderlands movie because I never quite connected with the games in terms of the wasteland setting, the more comedic tone. I just never quite got invested in this world of Pandora and this world of the Vault Hunters and whatnot. Nevertheless, I think when you get Cate Blanchett to be your ostensible star of the movie, that is pretty exciting. Now, unfortunately, Borderlands is a complete turd. It should really come as no surprise that a movie that was filmed in 2021 and then dumped in August 2024 isn't good, but it's quite impressive how poor Borderlands actually is. You have Cate Blanchett in the lead, one of our great actresses, and yet it's a clear paycheck job from her. The material really isn't there for her to do much of anything because this movie's script is confoundingly bad. This story doesn't make any sense. Kevin Hart surprised me a bit more for playing more of a down-the-middle straight man. The funniest thing in the movie is Jack Black's claptrap, which actually gets a lot of funny jokes. The CGI is quite uneven. At times it looks fine, other times it looks garishly bad, an obvious sign of the reshoots that were done last year. This is a movie that if you're a hardcore fan of the Borderlands franchise, it'll probably piss you off, and if you don't know anything about Borderlands, it has nothing to invite you in with either. So there's really nothing to recommend about it. I think visually, the Borderlands aesthetic, from the games, never was my favorite in terms of that art style. The movie does a decent job of approximating that, but it doesn't really stand out. I think at times the production design looks fine, but it's just always been a bit of a generic palette to me in terms of the world of Borderlands, and the movie doesn't do anything to change that. Borderlands also becomes a movie with a ton of action, especially as the movie progresses, and despite the never-ending combat through a large chunk of the movie when we go underground, there's really nothing to write home about. It's not staged with any grandeur or anything like that. There's no hand-to-hand combat that stands out. It's just kind of turn your brain off moments in the movie, and then when you get to the non-fighting aspects of the movie, you're just completely lost because the story doesn't make any sense. I will say I didn't love Ariana Greenblatt's Tina character. Incredibly grating and frustrating to be with for sure. Despite really having nothing good to say about the movie besides Jack Black's comedy in the film, I have a hard time laying this at the feet of any one person because this is a film that really was so troubled for such a long time, right? I mean, doing the reshoots, over 2 years later with Tim Miller instead of Eli Roth, because Eli Roth was off filming a new movie. I mean, the script clearly being hacked to bits. This feels like it was studio intervention and then just completely given up on in the same regard. I mean, Craig Mazin at one point was a screenwriter on this movie, but he took his name off this film. This just didn't work on a multitude of levels, and that happens sometimes, and it's very reminiscent of the video game curse era when it comes to movies, right? This would have fit right in a good 5-6 years ago in terms of how we used to think about video game films. Of course, since then, we've had great success with stuff like the Super Mario Brothers movie, so the tides do seem to be turning, but this definitely feels like a relic of the past when it comes to trying to crack the video game code on the big screen. And yeah, there's really nothing much to recommend about it. Let me know though, did you like Borderlands for some reason? If so, please tell me what that was. And otherwise, for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, welcome back, Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Industry Season 3 back on HBO and the BBC. I am so happy Industry is back. Industry Season 1 and Season 2 together. One of my favorite shows of the last 5 years. Also one of the most underrated shows on TV. Frankly, I think it's the most underrated show on TV in the sense that everyone I know loves the show, and yet not enough people watch this show. And hopefully that'll change with Season 3 as Industry can perhaps pick up the mantle of Succession in a certain sense and be one of HBO's signature dramas moving forward. What's so great about Industry and continues with Season 3 is that it's just the perfect combination of drama and sexual tension and drug use, Britishness. It may be reductive to call Industry Succession meets Euphoria or Succession meets Skins, but in a sense, I still feel like it's a pretty useful comparison point to bring people in. This show rips. Season 3's premiere is excellent. I love the characters on this show. I love the fact that this show throws you in to the deep end of the world of high finance and does not hold the audience's hand at all. And we don't even have to understand the minutia, the financial jargon of what the characters are up to, because it's communicated and told with such an energy, such a verve, such rhythm. The show just moves and flows, and you're just on for the ride, and that ride is fun. That ride is bumpy. I love this show, and I think Season 3 is starting off in an incredibly promising direction. The addition of Kit Harington to the show for this season, very exciting to say the least. And between Mahala, Marissa, Bella, and Harry Lottie, you just have a trio of rising star leads that are just stars now. And of course, we can't forget Ken Leung's Eric. Like, the ensemble on Industry is awesome, and it's a show that's so able to bring in new guest characters, right? You had Jay Duplass on Season 2. Now we have Kit Harington in Season 3. Like, the world is great. Also awesome to see Sarah Goldberg join this season as well. Between Kit and Sarah Goldberg, you have two HBO alums returning to the network. It's very cool. But yeah, I think that there's just a lot to get into with this Season 3 premiere. I think the cliffhanger ending is great, so exciting. But that central premise of Kit Harington being this kind of classic like tech disruptor CEO type, and he's IPOing with Pierpoint. Great premise for the show. Very exciting. Obviously, the show needs pressure on its characters, and talk about high pressure environment. It totally works. And then, of course, we know that it's a show that the comings and goings of what happens at Pierpoint is only half the battle of how Industry storytelling work, because the personal lives of all its main characters are so integral as well. And we have Yasmin dealing with paparazzi attention due to the links to her on the Lamb father, and Industry Season 2 really opened up the family life of our characters, so that's continuing clearly with Season 3. Big Yaz episode in general. To start Season 3, she has a lot to do in this episode. Harry Laudie's Robert struggling to find his purpose, and I was not expecting the death in this first episode in terms of someone close to him. In a sense, when he first went back to that client who he came to know quite closely in Season 2, I was like, oh, they're going to do more of this? Feels like it could be spinning of the wheel a little bit, but no. They clearly progressed that forward with some finality. I wasn't expecting it. And then, of course, Harper, Mahala's character, the ostensible lead of the show, if there was only one lead, obviously her whole center as a character has been completely changed ever since Eric basically stabbed her in the back and got her fired at Pierpoint at the end of Season 2. So now she's at a completely different firm, trying to build back her life and her career. We obviously know things will continue to progress and get more dramatic. It's very exciting. And I just think it's an awesome setup. Of course, you have Ken Leung's Eric finally making partner at Pierpoint, but also having to make a tough decision at work, and fires Kenny, despite obvious opportunity to fire Yaz instead. But firing Kenny, I think it really shows you the legwork Industry has done as a show, that Kenny, as someone who we are introduced to as someone who's abusive to Yasmin in Season 1, and their relationship has come around to such the point that when you watch Eric fire Kenny, really to no fault of his own, you actually feel bad for him. And it's a horrible scene. It is it's heartbreaking. And like, I think it just shows you like the legwork and the depth of all these characters and the strength of the writing on this show. I love the scene early in the episode where you have that like skeptical investor basically calling out Kit Harington's character for fudging the financials of his energy company Lumi right before the IPO, and then backing out as a result. It's a great example of the show not needing to hold your hand in terms of communicating detail with the financial developments of how this show's going to work in the world of high finance, and yet it's a really riveting show. Like, you don't have to actually know too much of what they're talking about because it all makes sense in terms of how the characters are talking to each other, how they're feeling. Like, you understand everything even if you don't understand the detail. I'm honestly excited to have Kit Harington back in a big role again. I'll be curious how this character works in a way that's different from Jay Duplass's character in season 2. Obviously, his character was very close with Harper. Now it seems Kit Harington's character will be close with Yaz. So different, but will it be that different? We'll see. Looking forward to getting more Rob. Honestly, that's been a character that isn't fully like part of the trio. Clearly more supporting than Harper or Yasmin is. So we'll see how that goes. But it seems like Eric is still very much a key member of this show, which I love. Obviously, the performance is great. The characters very nuanced, which is exciting. Yeah, Industry Season 3, I mean, to have HBO go from House of the Dragon on Sunday nights right into Industry, hopefully this gets more eyeballs on Industry, but also it's a great vote of confidence in HBO in terms of understanding how good Industry is. So hopefully this show picks it up, it gets a quick Season 4 renewal, and when we see that finale, we'll be very excited about the show as we are right now. But let me know, how are you feeling about Industry Season 3? What are you most looking forward to see from the characters, from the show? Let me know. And for more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. That's going to do it for the pod this week. Next week, we did it, baby. We're back. It's Alien Week. Alien Romulus from Fede Alvarez is here. First Alien movie since 2017. I am excited. The trailer looks good. The buzz is strong. We'll be going deep on Alien. I cannot wait. And of course, because this has been a summer with tons of music. Like, I feel like this has been such a busy summer for music, at least music I pay attention to. More music to discuss. YG, Cat's Eye, K-pop debut, Foster the People is back, Tinashe releasing an album following Nasty, plenty to discuss, so make sure you subscribe, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod, see the links below, get the best of 2024 Spotify playlist linked below, let me know it's good, leave a review, do all that stuff, and I'll see you next week.